Hello, listeners and viewers of Outrageous History. I'm Ernest Granson, and welcome to my own platform pulpit. It's called Surfing the Time Capsule. This is where I get to indulge by spewing my own opinion upon the masses, depending on your definition of the word masses. You know, no matter how many podcast interviews I've done over the years, I still come away at the end of each interview with the greatest respect for how that historian or author has not only told the story of an individual or event, but also how that story has created this whole new perspective. And that is what the purpose of Surfing the Time Capsule is all about, to reflect or comment about all those different aspects of a particular story or biography. So, let's get right to the first episode of Surfing the Time Capsule. The two recent podcasts available on the Outrageous History platform offer an interesting juxtaposition. In John Galt Lives, we examine the puzzling phenomenon of Ayn Rand and her polarizing views on capitalism. In Martha Was Right, we explore what led to the downfall of the Nixon administration and its actors. The common thread in both of those plays is greed. As journalist, activist, and NYU professor Lisa Duggan points out in her Rand biography, Mean Girl, Rand certainly made no bones about her beliefs, and that is that greed is no less than the driving force behind human advancement in civilization. Writer and producer Robbie Pickering, who produced the 8-part streaming series Gaslit, believes that greed was also the catalyst of the immoral and criminal actions during the Watergate scandal. The series is told from the point of view of Martha Mitchell, wife of then Attorney General John Mitchell. Julia Roberts plays the part of the over-the-top Martha. Now, for Rand, subscribing to her concept of pure capitalism couldn't be considered greed. Rather, it's the responsible thing to do. In fact, it's the right thing to do. It's simply acting in your own self-interest, which, according to her, works out best for everyone. Well, maybe it's not quite as simple for those involved with the Watergate break-in of the headquarters of the Democratic National Committee at Washington, D.C.'s Watergate Hotel apartment complex in the early 1970s. The actual reason for the burglary is and has been the subject of constant conjecture in the past 50 years since it happened. Well, just do some Googling and ask, what was the purpose of the Watergate burglary? And you'll find yourself tumbling down the rabbit hole. Well, the same might be said about the reason why so many White House-connected individuals knowingly carried on with the illegal activities, and even more so, the cover-up. Robbie Pickering tries to answer that question in a scene he wrote for episode 8 of Gaslit. In the scene, a couple of curious FBI agents transporting former White House counsel John Dean to a congressional hearing ask, what would lead him to become involved with such a disparaging scandal? In the scene, Dean answers that he would do anything to sit on an Air Force One seat made of Pashania foam, apparently which was at that time available only in the Eastern Bloc. He states that he would do anything to ride with the president 30,000 feet above the rest of the world, cradled by a cloud. And how could anyone go back to living their previous life with its ordinary cushions and ordinary existence? Now, it's important to note that those were not actual quotes by John Dean. For Robbie Pickering, the lines were meant to convey Dean's justification for taking part in the Watergate cover-up. As Pickering states in his Outrageous History podcast interview, he doesn't feel that Dean would actually say those specific words because he would be very careful about what he did say. And did he ever get to embrace his behind with Pashania foam on Air Force One? In that episode, he tells his FBI escorts that yes, he did, and it felt better than anything they could ever imagine. So, was it greed that propelled the characters in the Watergate scandal? Well, for John Dean, it's unlikely we'll ever know his real internal reasons for marching down the steps of duplicity. But there is an argument to be made that it was greed in the form of ambition. Dean's book, Blind Ambition, published in 1976, while it does describe in detail 5 years' worth of events of that period, does not address Dean's motivations, justifications, or rationalizations. Ayn Rand's mammoth novel, Atlas Shrugged, does go into agonizing argumentation to buttress her skewed version of capitalism. Now, I won't bother trying to capsulize the plot of the entire novel, which in my print version runs about 1,100 pages. It's a bit convoluted and messy and includes a 30-page sermon in which Rand's primary character, John Galt, virtually bashes the reader over the head with Ayn Rand's life philosophy, which she entitled Objectivism. Simply put, the philosophy claims that a person's own happiness is the highest moral goal in life. Even the chapter names of the novel attest to this extreme belief, i.e. the utopia of greed, anti-greed, anti-life, their brother's keeper. At the end of the John Galt Ayn Rand diatribe, Galt issues his promise to live by this creed, announcing, "I swear by my life and my love of it, that I will never live my life for the sake of another man, nor ask for another man to live for mine." The basic concepts underlying Rand's objectivism assert that individualism, hard work, and dismissal of altruism will not only create an ideal world, they actually form the basis of the natural human state. And it should be noted that evolutionary scientists and anthropologists are still debating why altruistic and cooperative behavior developed in early human history in the first place. Yet it has. There is no debate of that. It's striking that those who subscribe to Rand's philosophy, and there are plenty of those even today, do not take into account the upheaval generated by the greed and misguided ambition that created, for instance, the Watergate scandal. Certainly there was no altruism involved in their actions, and yet that ideal world, extolled by Ayn Rand, has not materialized. Writer and producer Robbie Pickering goes into a deeper and more nuanced commentary of his interpretation of the Watergate conundrum in our Outrageous History podcast called Martha Was Right. While his series Gaslit tackles some troubling issues, the first several issues are hilarious in the way Robbie portrays John Dean as a government ladder climber, and the scenes with G. Gordon Liddy are a scream. Professor and writer Lisa Duggan's book Mean Girl also manages to inject a great sense of humor into a study of Ayn Rand's perplexing appeal to her cult-like followers during her prime in the 1940s and 1950s, and the even more baffling current enthrallment by some politicians and corporate leaders. You can hear that full interview in the Outrageous History podcast called John Galt Lives. Outrageous History podcasts are available on all major podcast channels, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts. Or just log on to www.outrageoushistory.com. When you do log on to the website, register to access the Outrageous History Members Lounge, where you'll find all sorts of additional information in the podcast and authors' deep dives. Now, do you have any issue about any of the topics discussed? Comments or questions? Log on to What's on Your Mind, the Members Lounge Interactive Forum. Also in the Members Lounge, you'll find our listings of travel tours, museums and galleries, events and lectures from all over the world. You have to register to access the lounge, but it's free and easy to do. Thanks for tuning in to Surfing the Time Capsule on Outrageous History. I'm Ernest Granson. Outrageous History is produced by Northern Flicker Media.